After my husband passed away, everything changed. The house that once echoed with laughter became quiet. The garden we both loved turned dull, and every ticking sound of the clock reminded me that I was living alone now. In the beginning, people came. They brought food, flowers, and sympathy. They promised to visit again. But as the days went by, one by one, they all disappeared. My son stopped calling as often. My daughter-in-law said she was busy with work. And I understood, or at least, I tried to. But deep down I knew I had been left behind. Mornings were the hardest. I would wake up, turn to the empty side of the bed, and whisper, "Good morning, John," even though he wasn't there anymore. Sometimes I would still make 2 cups of coffee. Old habits die hard. I'd place one in front of his chair and just stare at it, pretending he was still sitting there, smiling at me the way he used to. Every corner of the house carried a memory. His laughter, his favorite books, the sound of him humming while fixing something in the garage. But memories can be cruel. They keep you company, but they also remind you of everything you've lost. Weeks passed, then months. Even my son's voice became a stranger over the phone. He would call once a month, and the conversations became shorter every time. "Mom, are you doing okay?" he'd ask. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I'd lie. I didn't want to sound like a burden. I didn't want to make him feel guilty. But when the calls stopped completely, I realized I had become invisible. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your chest until it becomes hard to breathe. At night, I'd sit by the window, watching the streetlights flicker outside, and whisper, "If anyone's listening, please, just let me feel loved again." It happened one cold evening. The sun had already set, and I was halfway through a lonely dinner when I heard a soft knock on the door. At first, I ignored it. I thought it was the wind, or maybe a delivery mistake. But then it came again. 3 gentle knocks. I slowly walked to the door and opened it. There stood a young man, maybe in his 20s, wearing a gray hoodie, holding a small paper bag. His smile was warm, but his eyes had something familiar. "Good evening, ma'am," he said softly. "I live a few blocks away. I noticed your porch light was out, so I thought I'd help replace the bulb. And I brought you some groceries." I froze. No one had done something kind for me in months. "Oh, you didn't have to do that," I said. But he smiled. "It's okay. Sometimes we all need a little help, right?" His name was Michael. He told me he had just moved back to town after college and was living nearby with his parents. He started dropping by every few days, sometimes to help with groceries, sometimes just to talk. We'd sit by the fireplace, sharing stories about life. He told me about his job, his dreams, and how he missed his grandmother who passed away when he was little. "I used to visit her secretly," he laughed. "My mom didn't want me to, but I always found a way. She was the kindest person I knew." I smiled softly. "Grandmothers have a way of making the world feel safe," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, she made me feel loved." Days turned into weeks, and Michael's visits became the highlight of my days. He'd bring me flowers from the local market, fix broken things around the house, and sometimes we'd just sit in silence, 2 souls finding comfort in each other's company. One afternoon, I baked cookies, the same recipe my husband used to love. When Michael tasted them, he paused. These taste familiar," he said, frowning slightly. I chuckled. "Maybe your grandmother used to bake the same ones." "Maybe," he smiled. But there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something distant, like a memory trying to return. One rainy morning, Michael came over soaked from the rain. I gave him a towel, made him tea, and we sat talking while thunder rolled outside. He looked around the room, his eyes landing on an old photograph hanging above the fireplace. A picture of me and my husband, taken years ago. He stood up, staring at it for a long time. Then he turned to me, his voice quiet. "Ma'am, is that your husband?" "Yes," I said softly, "John. We were married for 40 years. He hesitated. "What was his last name?" "Williams," I replied. "John and Margaret Williams." Michael went completely still. His hands trembled slightly. He took a step back, eyes wide. "Margaret Williams," he whispered again. I nodded, confused. "Why, is something wrong?" He swallowed hard. "My mom's maiden name was Williams." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of rain filled the silence between us. Then he whispered, "My mom's name is Lisa Williams. She used to live here when she was little." My breath caught in my throat. Lisa, my son's wife, my daughter-in-law who took my son away and never let me see my grandson again. I stared at him, tears forming in my eyes. "Michael," I whispered, "your mother is Lisa." He nodded slowly. "Yes. And my father's name is Adam. Adam, my only son." I covered my mouth, trembling. "Oh my God." I could barely speak. "You're my grandson." Tears rolled down Michael's face as he sat beside me. "I knew it," he said softly. "I didn't understand it before, but I always felt something familiar when I was around you." He looked down at his hands. "When I was a kid, Mom used to tell me not to visit you. She said you and Dad had disagreements, and she didn't want me to get involved." He smiled sadly. "But whenever Mom and Dad went to work, I used to sneak out and come here. You used to give me cookies, read me stories, and tell me that being kind was the most important thing in life." I gasped. "I remember that," I whispered. "You were the little boy who loved chocolate chip cookies and kept asking for one more story before going home." He laughed softly through his tears. "I never forgot your kindness, even when Mom tried to keep me away. I remembered how safe it felt here, how much you cared." We both sat in silence for a while, the weight of years melting away between us. I reached out, gently touching his hand. "My sweet boy," I said with a trembling voice. "You came back to me." He nodded. "I guess I never really left. Something in me always wanted to find you again." He looked around the room. "It's strange," he said. "All these years, I thought I was just helping a kind old lady. But now I realize I was coming home." I couldn't stop crying. Not from sadness, but from gratitude. Life had brought him back to me in the most unexpected way. From that day on, Michael became a part of my life again. He came by every evening after work, and we'd talk for hours. About the past, about forgiveness, about love. Eventually, even Lisa called. She cried on the phone, apologizing for the years she'd kept us apart. And I forgave her. Because holding on to anger only steals time from the moments that matter most. Now, when I sit by the window, the house doesn't feel empty anymore. There's laughter again, the smell of fresh cookies, and the warmth of family that had once been lost. Sometimes life takes people away from us, but if love is real, it always finds a way back home.